The last signal. The vast emptiness of the Carina Nebula seemed to mock Captain Ziraval as she watched the last of her ship's power reserves dwindle to critical levels. The soft blue glow of her bioluminescent skin cast eerie shadows across the bridge of the Vidrani merchant vessel Star Whisper, where her family had lived and traded for 3 generations. Now that legacy might end here, in the cold darkness of space, thanks to the ruthless Drachnid pirates who had disabled their engines and communications array. "Mother, the auxiliary power core is failing," her daughter Naira reported, her usually melodic voice tight with fear. "We have maybe 20 minutes of life support remaining." The young Vidrani's tendrils writhed anxiously as she worked at her console, trying to squeeze every last bit of energy from their failing systems. Zyra's mate, senior engineer Kelvin Val, emerged from the access tunnel, his silver scales dulled with exhaustion. "The damage is worse than we thought. Those pirates knew exactly where to hit us. They used some kind of targeted ion pulse I've never seen before." The pirates had struck without warning, emerging from the nebula's charged particles like predators from the depths. The Star Whisper wasn't built for combat. It was a family vessel, carrying rare minerals and cultural artifacts between the peaceful trading worlds of the Outer Rim. They'd managed to evade the initial attack, but at a terrible cost to their systems. "How many distress calls have gone unanswered?" Zyra asked, though she already knew the answer. She'd watched as ship after ship ignored their pleas for help, their signals showing clearly on the sensor display before vanishing into FTL jumps. 17, Naira whispered. "The Merchants Guild, the Concordiate vessels, even the Galactic peacekeepers, they all just left us here." The young Vidrani's voice cracked with disbelief. Their people had always believed in the unity of spacefaring races, in the bonds of trade and cultural exchange that supposedly bound all species together. But now, faced with the reality of helping a ship under threat from the notorious Drachnid pirates, that unity had proven to be nothing more than pleasant fiction. A warning klaxon blared through the ship, multiple contacts emerging from the nebula. Naira reported, her tendrils pulling close to her head in fear. "It's them. They're coming to finish us off." Zyra moved to comfort her daughter, but her attention was caught by something new on the sensor display. A small signal, approaching rapidly from the opposite direction of the pirates. The signature was unfamiliar, using frequencies she'd never encountered in all her years of trading. "Unknown vessel approaching from bearing 227 Mark 45. Kelvin announced, his webbed fingers flying across the engineering console. It's broadcasting on all frequencies, audio only." A voice crackled through their failing comm system, speaking in roughly translated Galactic Standard. "Vidrani vessel, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Mining Corporation vessel Deep Horizon. We picked up your distress call. Hang tight. We're coming in hot." The bridge crew of the Star Whisper exchanged confused looks. Earth. None of them had heard of such a world or its species. "They're either brave or foolish," Kelvin muttered, studying the approaching ship's profile. "That's a mining vessel, not a warship. Basic shields, minimal weapons. Against Drachnid pirates." "We're being hailed again," Naira interrupted. "The human ship is requesting our remaining power specifications and shield frequencies." Before Zyra could respond, 3 Drachnid warships emerged from the nebula's swirling gases, their angular hulls bristling with weapons. The largest ship broadcast a message that made Zyra's blood run cold. "Stand down, human vessel. This is not your concern. The Vidrani ship and its cargo are our legitimate salvage. Interfere, and you will share their fate." The response from the human captain was immediate and clear. "That's funny. From where I'm sitting, all I see is 3 oversized scrap heaps picking on a civilian transport. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to back off, or you're going to learn why messing with a human mining ship in an asteroid field is a really bad idea." Zyra felt her heart skip a beat as she processed the human's words. Asteroid field. Her sensors had detected no. Wait. The readings were there now. Dozens, then hundreds of small objects appearing on their screens, previously hidden by the nebula's interference. The human ship had been hurting them, she realized, using its mining equipment to shift their trajectories, ever so slightly over what must have been hours of careful preparation. They knew we would need help, she whispered. They picked up our first distress call and started preparing, even before they revealed themselves. The pirate captain's response dripped with contempt. You dare threaten us? We are the Drachnid corsairs. We fear no primitive mining vessel. Last chance, Captain Chen replied, her voice carrying an almost amused tone. Or things are about to get real interesting. The pirates responded with plasma fire, their weapons lighting up the nebula with deadly energy. But the human ship was already moving, its mining beams activating in patterns Zyra had never seen before. And then, to her astonishment, the asteroid field began to dance. The battle for the Star Whisper had begun, and Zyra Val found herself witnessing firsthand why sometimes the most dangerous beings in the galaxy were the ones everyone else overlooked. Against all odds, the first asteroid struck the lead Drachnid ship like a hammer from the gods. Captain Sarah Chen's fingers danced across her control panel as she orchestrated what could only be described as an astronomical ballet. The Deep Horizon's mining beams, normally used for carefully extracting precious minerals, now wielded dozens of asteroids like guided missiles. Years of precision mining experience were being put to a use that would have made her instructors at the Earth Mining Academy either proud or horrified. Possibly both. Status of the Vidrani vessel, she called out, never taking her eyes off the intricate gravitational calculations scrolling across her screen. Her first officer, James Rodriguez, responded from his station. Their life support is critical, maybe 15 minutes left. Their shield generator is running on fumes. It won't survive another direct hit. Sarah nodded grimly. The Deep Horizon wasn't built for rescue operations, but they'd been preparing for this moment ever since they'd picked up the Vidrani's first distress call 4 hours ago. While other ships fled, they had methodically used their mining equipment to reshape the local asteroid field into a weapon, all while appearing to simply go about their regular mining business. Drachnid vessels adapting to asteroid attack pattern, the tactical officer, Lai Wei, reported. They're splitting up to surround us. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Perfect. Initiate Operation Rockslide. The Deep Horizon's engines flared as it executed a maneuver that would have seemed suicidal to most space captains. The mining vessel dove straight toward the largest concentration of asteroids, its mining beams operating at frequencies that had never been intended for combat use. On the bridge of the Star Whisper, Zyra Val watched in amazement as the human ship disappeared into the asteroid field. They're insane, Kelvin breathed, his engineer's mind struggling to process the precision of the maneuvers he was witnessing. The Drachnid pirates, apparently sharing this assessment, moved in for what they thought would be an easy kill. Their warship's superior weapons would have no trouble destroying both vessels once they had clear shots. That's when Operation Rockslide revealed its true nature. The asteroids that the Deep Horizon had been subtly positioning for hours hadn't been meant just as simple projectiles. Sarah's crew had carefully calculated the gravitational interactions of hundreds of rocky bodies, creating a complex web of orbital mechanics that was now reaching its tipping point. Now, Sarah commanded, and the Deep Horizon fired its mining beams in a complex pattern that looked almost like a dance. The effect was devastating. Dozens of asteroids began moving in seemingly impossible ways, caught in a cascade of gravitational forces that the humans had orchestrated with mathematical precision. The Drachnid ships found themselves caught in a three-dimensional maze of spinning rocks, their powerful weapons suddenly more liability than asset. Every time they fired at where they thought the mining vessel was, they hit only asteroids. Asteroids that their shots then superheated and fragmented into clouds of high-velocity shrapnel. They don't understand, Sarah explained over the open channel to the Star Whisper, her voice calm despite the chaos unfolding around them. Mining isn't just about brute force. It's about reading the rock, understanding the dance of gravity and momentum. Every asteroid has a story, if you know how to listen. The deep horizon emerged from the field behind the Drachnid ships, its mining beams already reconfiguring another section of space into a deadly trap. The pirates tried to turn to face this new threat, but their larger ships couldn't match the mining vessel's maneuverability among the asteroids. Your weapons may be stronger, Sarah continued, now addressing the increasingly frustrated Drachnid captain, but we've been rehearsing this ballet for hours. Care to see the final? The response came in the form of plasma torpedoes, which the deep horizon skillfully dodged. Each miss from the pirates only added to the chaos of superheated rock and metal now filling the battlefield. On the Star Whisper, Naira suddenly straightened at her console. Mother, the human ship, they're not just attacking. Look at these readings. Zyra moved to her daughter's station and saw what had escaped their notice in the heat of battle. The deep horizon's seemingly chaotic maneuvers were actually bringing them closer to the Star Whisper in a carefully plotted spiral. More than that, each asteroid they shifted was helping to create a temporary corridor of relatively clear space between the two vessels. They're not just fighting the pirates, Kelvin realized, his voice filled with awe. They're clearing us an escape route while simultaneously keeping the Drachnids too busy to notice. Sarah's voice came through again. Vidrani vessel, we're going to try something a bit unorthodox. When I give the signal, I need you to divert every scrap of power you have left to your forward shields. Can you do that? Zyra looked at her mate, who nodded firmly. We can give you maybe 30 seconds of shield power, she replied. That's all we need. Stand by. The next few moments would be forever seared into the memories of everyone who witnessed them. The deep horizon executed a series of maneuvers that seemed to defy the laws of physics, its mining beams working at speeds that should have burned them out. Asteroids began moving in intricate patterns, creating what appeared to be a tunnel of spinning rock that connected the two ships. Now, Sarah commanded. As the Star Whisper diverted its remaining power to shields, the deep horizon activated a modified mining tractor beam, one that had been carefully calibrated to the Vidrani ship's mass and shield frequency. The damaged vessel began to move, pulled along by the human ship's ingenious combination of gravitational forces and technological improvisation. The Drachnid pirates, finally realizing what was happening, turned their weapons on the escaping ships. But it was too late. The corridor of spinning asteroids now served as both shield and weapon, deflecting their shots and breaking up their formation. Any pirate ship that tried to pursue would have to navigate a maze of orbital mechanics that only the humans fully understood. Impossible, the Drachnid captain sputtered over the comm. You're nothing but primitive mining scum. Funny thing about us primitive humans, Sarah replied, her voice carrying a note of satisfaction as both ships accelerated away from the battle zone. We tend to do our best work when someone tells us something's impossible. As the deep horizon pulled the Star Whisper to safety, Zyra looked at her family, seeing the same expression of wonder on their faces that she felt in her hearts. They had just witnessed something that would change their understanding of the galaxy forever. Trust in strangers. The emergency docking procedure between the two ships was anything but standard. Captain Sarah Chen watched through the viewport as the deep horizon's magnetic clamps locked onto the Vidrani vessel's hull, creating a temporary seal that would allow for transfer between the ships. Engineering readouts showed the Star Whisper's life support systems were minutes from total failure. Medical team standing by, James Rodriguez reported. Though I should mention that our xenobiology database has exactly zero information about Vidrani physiology. Sarah nodded grimly. We'll have to improvise, like always. The airlock cycled, and for the first time, humans and Vidrani came face to face. Sarah had to force herself not to stare at the elegant bioluminescent beings with their flowing tendrils and silvery scales. She reminded herself that to them, humans probably looked just as alien with their solid-colored skin and strange, rigid hair. Zeraval stepped forward, her family behind her. The Vidrani captain's blue luminescence pulsed with what Sarah hoped was positive emotion. "Captain Chen," Zyra spoke through her translator, "we owe you our lives. I must ask though, why did you help us when so many others turned away?" Sarah's response was interrupted by a violent shudder that ran through both ships. Lai Wei's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, the Drachnids have called for reinforcements. 3 more warships just dropped out of FTL at the edge of the nebula." "Because it was the right thing to do," Sarah answered Zyra quickly, already moving toward the bridge. "And this conversation will have to continue later because right now we need to move. Your ship's not going anywhere under its own power. Can your people evacuate to the deep horizon?" Kelvin Val stepped forward, his engineer's training evident in his precise movements. "The Star Whisper contains irreplaceable cultural artifacts and trade goods, generations of our family's history, which won't matter if we're all dead." Sarah cut in, not unkindly. "We can't outrun Drachnid warships while towing your vessel, not through the nebula." Another impact rocked the ships. Through the viewport, they could see the gas clouds of the nebula beginning to swirl with the energy signatures of approaching Drachnid vessels. They were being hunted. Zyra looked at her mate and daughter, then made a decision. "We'll evacuate. But Captain Chen, you must understand. Our species has never, we've never entrusted ourselves to the care of an unknown race before. The stories we've heard of other species—" "Mom," Naira interrupted, her young voice carrying a wisdom beyond her years. "They already saved us once, without asking for anything in return. Maybe it's time we learn to trust differently." The evacuation was organized chaos. The human crew worked efficiently to help transfer the Vidrani family and their essential belongings. Sarah couldn't help but notice how her crew naturally adjusted their behavior to accommodate their alien guests' obvious sensitivity to certain sounds and movements. Where other species might have seen differences to fear, her people saw challenges to overcome. In the Deep Horizon's medical bay, Dr. Maya Patel was already adapting their equipment to monitor Vidrani life signs, her expression one of fascinated concentration rather than frustration at the unknown. "Their biological structure is fascinating," she commented as she worked. "The bioluminescence seems to serve both communication and metabolic functions. I've never seen anything quite like it." The ship shuddered again, more violently this time. "All hands, battle stations," Sarah's voice came over the intercom. "Our guests are about to get a demonstration of human emergency protocols. Dr. Patel, secure the medical bay. Everyone else, this is going to get interesting." In the bridge, Sarah settled into her captain's chair as her crew took their positions. The tactical display showed 7 Drachnid warships now, arranging themselves in a hunting pattern through the nebula. The Deep Horizon sensors were having trouble getting clear readings through the gas clouds, but that worked both ways. The Drachnids would have the same problem. "They're trying to herd us toward the nebula's core," Lai Wei reported. "Energy readings suggest they've adapted their weapons to prevent another asteroid trick." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Good thing I never used the same trick twice. Engineering, how are those modifications to the mining beams coming along?" "Ready when you are, Captain," came the response from below decks. "Though I feel obligated to mention that what we're about to try has a 60% chance of frying our entire power grid." "Noted. Helm, set course for the densest part of the nebula. Let's show our guests another human specialty, making the impossible possible." Zyra and her family had been given seats on the bridge, a gesture of trust that wasn't lost on them. Now they watched in a mixture of fear and fascination as the human crew worked with a coordination that seemed almost telepathic. "The nebula's core is highly unstable," Kelvin observed, his engineer's training making him nervous. "The energy densities there could tear a ship apart." "Could," Sarah agreed, "or they could provide exactly what we need. You've already seen how we use mining beams to manipulate natural forces. Want to see what happens when we apply that same principle to plasma physics?" The Deep Horizon plunged deeper into the nebula, its modified mining beams now emitting patterns of energy that seemed to dance with the natural phenomena around them. The Drachnid ships followed, their superior weapons ready to tear the mining vessel apart the moment they had a clear shot. But clarity was becoming increasingly rare as the nebula grew denser around them. Strange lights played across the ship's hull, and the energy readings on every console began to spike in ways that the Vidrani had never seen before. "What we've learned from mining in dangerous conditions," Sarah explained as she made minute adjustments to their course, "is that sometimes the most powerful forces in nature can be redirected rather than resisted. The nebula's core is basically one massive plasma storm waiting to happen. All it needs is a little encouragement." Understanding dawned in Kelvin's eyes. "You're going to trigger a cascade reaction in the nebula itself." "Not exactly," Sarah replied, her fingers dancing across her controls. "We're going to become the cascade reaction." As the deep horizon penetrated deeper into the nebula's core, its mining beams began to pulse in complex patterns, each burst precisely calculated to interact with the surrounding gases. The energy patterns began to shift and swirl, creating a vortex of plasma that the human ship somehow rode like a surfer on a wave. The Drachnid ships, their sensors confused by the growing chaos, didn't realize what was happening until it was too late. The cascade reaction spread through the nebula like lightning through a cloud, creating a maze of plasma storms that no normal navigation system could penetrate. But the deep horizon wasn't using normal navigation. It was using the accumulated knowledge of generations of human miners who had learned to read the language of gravity, energy, and matter itself. Where others saw chaos, they saw patterns. Where others saw danger, they saw opportunity. And as they emerged from the other side of the nebula's core, leaving their pursuers lost in a storm of their own making, Zyraval understood something profound about these humans. They weren't just brave or resourceful. They were transformative. They took the very things that others feared and reshaped them into tools of survival. The human way. The news spread through the galactic communication networks like wildfire. A human mining vessel had not only rescued a Vidrani merchant ship from Drachnid pirates, but had done so using methods that defied conventional space combat wisdom. The recording from the Star Whisper's sensor logs, showing the deep horizon's ingenious use of asteroids and nebula physics, became the most watched piece of data in the Outer Rim sectors. In the prestigious halls of the Galactic Concordiate, species representatives gathered to discuss this unprecedented event. The massive chamber hummed with conversation as beings from 100 worlds tried to make sense of what had happened. "These humans," spoke Ambassador Xintal of the Merchants Guild, their crystalline form shimmering with agitation. "They were under no obligation to help. They had no trade agreements with the Vidrani, no diplomatic ties, no profit motive. Their actions defy rational analysis. Their actions defy everything we thought we knew about them," added Representative Mira of the Technological Alliance, her holographic form flickering thoughtfully. "We dismissed them as primitive because they hadn't yet developed quantum fold drives or neural interface systems, but what they did with simple mining equipment." The debate was interrupted by the arrival of Captain Sarah Chen and Captain Zyraval, invited to address the Concordiate directly. The human captain looked almost small next to the elegant Vidrani, but she carried herself with quiet confidence as they approached the speaker's platform. "Honorable representatives," Zyra began, her bioluminescence pulsing with formal patterns, "I stand before you to testify about events that have fundamentally changed my understanding of our galactic community. When my ship was attacked, 17 vessels within range ignored our distress calls. These included ships from species represented in this very chamber." An uncomfortable rustling went through the assembly. Zyra continued, her voice growing stronger. "Each ship had its reasons, I'm sure. The Drachnid pirates were too dangerous. The risk was too great. It wasn't their concern. But a single human vessel, a mining ship with minimal weapons, chose to help simply because they could." Sarah stepped forward then, her voice clear in the vast chamber. "I've been asked repeatedly why we intervened. The truth is, There was never any question about it. Where I come from, if someone needs help and you can provide it, you do. It's that simple. Simple, scoffed a representative from the Strategic Alliance. You risked your ship, your crew, your lives for strangers. You had no way of knowing if the Vidrani would even be compatible with your life support systems. You could have all died. Yes, Sarah agreed calmly. We could have. But you know what else could have happened? A family could have died alone in space, while people who could help chose to look the other way. In my view, that would have been the greater tragedy. The chamber erupted in overlapping arguments. Some representatives praised the humans' bravery, while others condemned their recklessness. Through it all, Sarah stood quietly, until a new voice cut through the chaos. I would hear more about the human way. The chamber fell silent as Supreme Arbiter Vanson of the Concordiat rose from their seat. The ancient being's multifaceted eyes studied Sarah intently. Tell us, Captain Chen, how does your species view the galaxy? Why do you approach problems so differently from the rest of us? Sarah considered the question carefully. Humans have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. Throughout our history, we've had to adapt, to find new ways to survive and thrive. We never developed quantum fold drives because we were too busy figuring out how to make cheaper, more reliable fusion engines. We don't have neural interfaces because we learned to make our existing technology work better through innovation and improvisation. She gestured to the recording still playing silently above the chamber, showing the deep horizon dancing through the asteroid field. We didn't fight the pirates with superior weapons. We fought them with mining beams and physics and determination. That's the human way. We work with what we have, we help who we can, and we never accept that something's impossible just because no one's done it before. A thoughtful murmur ran through the chamber. The Supreme Arbiter's expression was unreadable as they asked, "And what do humans want in return for this assistance?" Sarah smiled slightly. Want? We already got what we wanted. The Vidrani family is alive. The pirates didn't win. The galaxy is, in some small way, a better place than it was yesterday. Isn't that enough? But surely, pressed another representative, you must seek some advantage from this, some political gain or trade concession. The advantage, Sarah replied, is in showing everyone that it can be done. That we can choose to help each other, to face challenges together, to be better than our fears would have us be. Maybe next time a ship is in trouble, someone else will remember this day and choose to help instead of turning away. As the chamber absorbed her words, Zyra stepped forward again. My people have always valued trade and cultural exchange, believing that they were the foundations of galactic civilization. But the humans have shown us something more fundamental, that true civilization begins with the choice to help others, even at great personal risk. The Supreme Arbiter was silent for a long moment, their ancient eyes moving between Sarah, Zyra, and the assembled representatives. Finally, they spoke. Perhaps we have all grown too comfortable in our advanced technologies and careful diplomacy. We have forgotten what it means to simply do what is right, regardless of the cost. The Arbiter rose to their full height. Captain Chen, your actions have given this body much to consider. The human way, as you call it, may seem reckless to some, but it has achieved what centuries of treaties and trade agreements could not. It has shown us our own complacency and challenged us to be better. A new alliance. 6 months after the rescue of the Star Whisper, the Carina Nebula had changed. Where once ships feared to venture, a joint human Vidrani station now hung in space, its unique design combining Vidrani aesthetic beauty with practical human engineering. The station was named New Horizon, and it served as both a safe haven for merchants and a symbol of something unprecedented in the galaxy, an alliance based not on profit or power, but on shared values. Sarah Chen stood at the station's observation deck, watching as ships from dozens of species docked and departed. The Deep Horizon was among them, newly refitted with improvements that merged human ingenuity with Vidrani technology. But more impressive than the technological advances were the changes in how species interacted with each other. Still hard to believe sometimes, isn't it? Zyraval asked, joining Sarah at the viewport. The Vidrani captain's bioluminescence glowed with warm colors that Sarah had learned to recognize as happiness. A year ago, most species wouldn't even consider working together like this. Sarah nodded, watching as a mixed crew of humans and Vidrani guided a ship into dock using their combined expertise. Amazing what can happen when people start seeing possibilities instead of problems. The station had become more than just a safe port. It was a proving ground for the human way of doing things, where innovation was valued over tradition, where helping others was seen as its own reward, and where species learned from each other's strengths instead of focusing on their differences. The Drachnid pirates had learned this lesson the hard way. Their attempts to harass ships in the nebula were now met not just with resistance, but with a coordinated response from multiple species working together. The pirates' advantage had always been that other species were too afraid or too self-interested to stand against them. But that was changing. The Concordiate Committee arrives tomorrow, Zyra mentioned, her tendrils moving in an expression of amusement. They want to study the unprecedented levels of interspecies cooperation at the station. As if it's some great mystery. Sarah laughed. Should we tell them the secret? That sometimes all it takes is one person willing to help another, and others will follow the example. I think they're starting to figure it out on their own, Zyra replied, gesturing to a nearby display showing emergency response statistics. In the past month alone, there had been 23 incidents where ships had gone out of their way to help others in distress, not because of treaties or obligations, but simply because they could. The station's medical bay had become a hub of xenobiological research, with Dr. Maya Patil leading a team of doctors from various species who shared knowledge freely. The engineering section was a constant hive of innovation, where Kelvin Val worked alongside human engineers to develop new technologies that combined the best of both worlds. And young Naira had started a cultural exchange program that was rapidly becoming the station's heart. You know what I love most, she had told Sarah recently. When different species share their stories of helping each other, it reminds everyone that kindness isn't unique to humans. You just helped us remember it was there all along. A alert chimed softly, drawing their attention to a new arrival. A massive Concordiat diplomatic vessel was approaching the station ahead of schedule, its design speaking of power and prestige. But what caught Sarah's eye was the small ship flying escort alongside it, a merchant vessel from a species she didn't recognize. Interesting, Zyra commented, her bioluminescence shifting to patterns of curiosity. The Concordiat ships usually travel alone. They consider it beneath their dignity to associate with merchant vessels. As they watched, the reason for the unusual pairing became clear. The merchant ship was struggling with some kind of engine malfunction, and the Concordiat vessel was helping guide it safely to the station. A year ago, such a sight would have been unthinkable. You know, Sarah said thoughtfully, when we saved your ship, I never imagined it would lead to all this. I just knew I couldn't live with myself if I didn't try to help. That's what makes it so powerful, Zyra replied. You didn't help us to change the galaxy. You helped us because it was right. And in doing so, you showed everyone a better way forward. The observation deck was filling with station personnel now, gathering for the shift change. Humans worked alongside Vidrani, while representatives from a dozen other species moved among them. There was an easy comfort to their interactions, a natural cooperation that had grown from shared experiences and mutual respect. Captain Chen, a young human engineer, called out, hurrying over with a Vidrani technician beside her. We've been working on adapting the mining beam modifications you used in the nebula. We think we found a way to use them for deep space rescue operations. Sarah smiled, recognizing the excitement of innovation in their eyes. The human way was spreading, but it was evolving too, becoming something greater as it merged with the wisdom and capabilities of other species. The galaxy was learning that strength didn't come from advanced technology or military might, but from the willingness to reach out and help others. As she looked out at the nebula that had once been a place of fear and isolation, Sarah saw not just swirling gases and hidden dangers, but possibilities. The New Horizons station was more than just a safe harbor or a symbol. It was a promise that in this vast, often dangerous galaxy, no one had to face their challenges alone. So, Zyra asked with a knowing gleam in her bioluminescent patterns, what impossible thing should we try next? Sarah's answer was interrupted by a familiar sound, a distress call coming from deep in the nebula. Without hesitation, ships of various species began preparing to respond, their crews working together with practiced efficiency. That, Sarah said, watching the rescue mission unfold, is exactly what I hoped would happen. Not just humans helping others, but everyone remembering that we're all in this together. And as the ships departed on their rescue mission, the New Horizons station continued its orbit through the once feared nebula, a beacon of light in the darkness, reminding all who saw it that the greatest adventures begin with a simple choice: the choice to help.